I am going to protest Israeli apartheid.
Why? Don't you know that I'm Jewish and that my grandparents barely survived the Holocaust?
What does the Holocaust have to do with Israeli apartheid?
A lot. For example, if Israel did not exist as a Jewish state and a safe haven for the Jewish people, there would be another Holocaust on Jews.
You live in Brooklyn.
What is your point?
That you being Jewish has nothing to do with the bad things Israel does to Palestinians.
Like what?
Taking their land and killing them.
Israel is the Jewish homeland for all Jews. Anyone who doesn't like it is a terrorist. Israel has to maintain security for itself, and Israel has a clear right to defend itself.
Israel made children's faces melt off in Operation Cast Lead.
Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel is a democracy. It has Palestinians as members of the court system, the parliament, and there was a Palestinian Miss Israel. So, Israel cannot be an apartheid state.
Israel does not allow Palestinian citizens of Israel to stand in the same line at airport security as the Jewish Israelis.
Iran wants to destroy Israel. Ahmadinejad said so.
Israel has segregated classrooms where Palestinian Israeli children are not allowed in the same classrooms as Jewish Israeli children.
It is not apartheid unless Israel has Jews-only urinals in public bathrooms.
What about the 400 children Israel killed in Gaza?
Israel has a right to defend itself.
Israel can only defend itself by killing hundreds of Palestinian children?
Ahmadinejad is the new Hitler and he made a solemn vow to wipe Israel off the map. He is trying to create another Holocaust and Israel has a right to defend itself.
Why is it that when I brought up how Israel killed hundreds of children in Operation Cast Lead and melted their faces off with illegal weapons that you brought up Iran out of nowhere?
It is a nervous tick. Whenever I hear anything bad about Israel that's true, I have a sudden urge to bring up Iran and watch Curb Your Enthusiasm.
There are millions of Palestinian refugees who need to have their right of return implemented.
That will not be possible unless they are Jewish.
Why do you use religion to determine where people get to live?
Just shut up until the refugees get bar mitzvahs and bet mitzvahs. The day I see a Palestinian wearing a yarmulke is the day I will welcome them to the Jewish paradise of Israel.
Israel also shot and killed grandmothers who were waving white flags.
Israel is the most moral army in the world. They must have been terrorists.
How can grandmothers waving white flags be terrorists?
Israel has a right to defend itself.
Is that another one of your nervous tics?
Yes. Every time you say something anti-Semitic, I can feel a nervous tic coming on. If you don't stop, I am going to call Abraham Foxman at the Anti-Defamation League and you are going to become an official anti-Semite.
You will not intimidate me. Almost 1 million Palestinians were forced out and terrorized in 1948 during the Nakba, and they have never been allowed to return to their homes as many UN resolutions stipulate.
Hitler wannabe.
Are you serious?
Have you read the Hamas Charter? They promised to reopen concentration camps all across Europe and annihilate every Jew off the face of the earth. Holocaust Part 2 with the help of Iran.
What? It doesn't say that.
It says they want to destroy Israel. Same thing.
Stop trying to change the subject and making stuff up. Israel destroyed Palestine already. Can you blame Palestinians for being a little upset about that?
Sorry, I did not recognize you without your mustache, Hitler. Please do not make me wear a yellow star.
How does criticizing Israel for dispossessing millions of people make me like Hitler? Their actions are wrong. I could care less if they're Jewish, Catholic, Hindu or atheist or whatever.
Israel has a right to defend itself.
I do not know if there is any use in debating Zionists. All you do is talk about the Holocaust, Iran and Hamas.
I am a scared and frightened little boy who wants the world to guarantee my security. That is why I support what Israel does to the Palestinians.
You live in Brooklyn.
One time a young woman wearing a hijab bumped into me. She apologized and said it was an accident, but I think it was on purpose because she was an anti-Semite.
You were truly a lunatic.
Hamas, Iran, The Pianist, Sophie's Choice, Hebrew National Hot Dogs, Dodger Dogs, The Oscar Mayer Wiener. Will you please hold me?
Come here, little guy. I'm glad we had this discussion and have furthered the cause of peace and coexistence.
I still think you're an anti-Semite.